So, a story that was released a little earlier this month, it revealed that the family of a deceased New York man, they donated his body for research, and scientists, they replaced his kidneys with one from a genetically modified pig. Now, this all happened in July, but they kept that body going, and soon that pig's organ started to function like the man's organ. It started functioning properly. Joining us today is Dr. Eric Siskind. He is a transplant surgeon with the Texas Health Transplant Specialists. And you actually know the doctor who led this procedure. How fascinating was this to you when you heard about this case?
It's an amazing case. It wasn't necessarily news to me though. I did when I was at University of Maryland in Baltimore, and Dr. Robert Montgomery, was the head of the team at NYU. He used to work at Johns Hopkins, so we knew each other from the Baltimore area. And the transplant community is relatively small. You know, everyone kind of knows everyone. It's almost like high school. You know, it's a small group of people. Everyone knows each other. But you know, when I was in University of Maryland, they were doing a lot of xenotransplantation research, heart to taking mostly baboon hearts into pigs and vice versa. And that's why the first pig to human heart transplant was done at University of Maryland. So this has kind of been something that's been in an evolution for the past 10, maybe 20 years, trying to make this work. There were some very limited experiments with primate to human liver transplant in California that were done that were not very successful. So this has been something that's been trying to be done for the past, I'd say, 10 years. In the past 5 years, it's gained a lot of traction because of the new genetically modified pigs that they've been able to use.
What is it about? What is it about that particular animal that translates so well as far as becoming possible for human transplant? As you mentioned, just a year ago, the University of Maryland transplanted a pig's heart into a man, and now they've been able to do this. Is this the future?
It's possible that this could be the future. I say that with great hesitation because there are many questions that still need to be answered. To answer your first question about why the pig, one is that the pig is close to a human genetically. In some ways, they found a little bit easier to manipulate and modify than the gorilla or baboons that they were using. The other is that the size is closer. A lot of the baboons were actually sometimes too large for a human, or too small in other cases. So the pigs were a little bit more reliable. And, you know, in America and other countries, you know, breeding pigs and taking care of pigs is something that's done normally. There were actually genetic research done with pigs in the same kind of instance, just to help people with allergies to certain kinds of chemicals that were in pigs, just to be able to eat a ham sandwich. And that kind of rolled into this, can we do the same thing to make it work for a kidney transplant?
That was fascinating.
The second question that you asked, that's the question on everyone's mind, and I don't think anyone knows the real answer yet. It's amazing that they were able to do this. Just in terms of the research, it's remarkable. But then the questions that have to be answered is, one, is this safe? There are a lot of zoonoses that we don't know about, meaning infections that can come from animals that will be transferred to humans. So everyone eats pig all the time, but that's not the same as having the genetically modified pig in your body and then being on immunosuppression medication. So there's, it's not 100% clear, but there's theories that the pig heart transplant patient in Maryland actually passed away, not from rejection of the heart, but from a pig virus that he caught from those kind of pigs. So that's one thing. Is this safe for everybody? Because keep in mind, right now we say these are human trials, and it is a pig kidney put into a human. But technically speaking, it's a dead human. These are patients who are brain dead, and according to the law, that means that they're actually dead. So it's still not the same thing as a live person, to put it simply. The next question is this going to be better than a human kidney transplant? It may be, it may not be, but it still may be better than having a patient be on dialysis. So then you have to ask yourself the question, well, might there be some kind of calculus? So let's say we know that a living donor kidney transplant will last maybe 20 to 25 years. A deceased donor kidney transplant may last, 10 to 15 years. Let's say they figure out a pig transplant lives 5 years. So would you say to a 20-year-old man or woman who needs a kidney transplant, you wait for a you wait for a human kidney? For a 70-year-old man or woman waiting for a transplant, you might say, you may not have all this time to wait. Why don't you go for the pig kidney? That might be your best option. We might come to that in the future. It may happen in 10 years. It may happen in 20 years. I keep in mind that the first living donor kidney transplant was done in the 1960s. Kidney transplantation didn't really become a common procedure until the 80s and 90s. And that was because the immunology, the immunosuppression medication hadn't caught up to the surgical technology. So it could be a similar phenomenon here where the technology to do the procedure exists, but the medication to prevent rejection hasn't been discovered yet. But if it's a reality, I hope I'm wrong. I hope it works really well and it can help a lot of people sooner.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It really is. And just to know how relatively new it all is. And there's so much, as you mentioned, still yet to be discovered and some answers to be heard. But I'm curious about, educating our listeners right now on the need for organs. How big of an issue is that right now?
That's a tremendous issue, and that's why this has been going on. Robert Montgomery himself, I heard him speak at the last transplant conference, and he said this is not something that they just decided to do for the sake of intellectual pursuit. This is to directly address the dire organ shortage. Thousands of patients die every year waiting for a kidney transplant or for liver or heart transplant. Kidney is the most visible because there are the most amount of people waiting. Kidney disease is very common, and there are the most amount of people waiting for a kidney transplant. And also there are more modalities for kidney transplantation. So you can take kidneys from dead people, and people have two kidneys. So you can help two people with one cadaveric donation, but also people can be living donors. Living kidney donation is an underutilized phenomenon in our country. There are many, many people who can give kidneys, and they don't because they don't have the access or they don't know about it. Most people can live healthily with one kidney. And we try to champion our living donors as heroes because they are heroes. At our hospital, Texas Health, Harris Methodist in Fort Worth, we have a new initiative that we started this year where we decorate the living donors room. We call it we don't call it hospital room 101, we call it the living donors suite. Mm-hmm. And we put in nice decorations. We have, like a Superman type motif saying, you're a hero, share your spare, donate life. We give them extra, cookies and gift items. We try to make them feel like a celebrity because the reality is they're a hero, they're a celebrity, and they should be celebrated.
You talk about living donors. Isn't the same situation for liver donation as well? Is that you can possibly be a living donor and donate part of your liver?
Living donation is also a reality, and it's a more complicated surgery. So there are more limitations, but yes, it is true. The amazing thing about liver transplantation is you can actually donate half your liver and then the liver will grow back. So it's a more complex surgery, but if you do well after the surgery, you'll end up getting back whatever you lost.
Wow, incredible.
I had one other follow-up to it as well, since we've been talking about a pig to human donation and the ability to do that. I know it's kind of extreme way down the line, and you mentioned before about someone having to make a choice between a human being and a kidney. Would there be a time in the future when this is more common that people might take on an animal's organ as a temporary fix until a human organ became available?
That would be another consideration, yes. And that's answering the question of right now we have dialysis. And dialysis is a way to keep someone alive when their kidneys don't work, but it's not as good as a real human kidney. Unfortunately, someone on dialysis, um, every year they're on dialysis, their chance of having a heart attack or a stroke goes up by about 10%. So patients can wait 5 to 10 years on dialysis. Now, forgive me, the math doesn't make sense, but that would mean their chance of having a heart attack would be 100%. It doesn't exactly fit, but you can understand the simple math is they're very, very sick. So the question is, is a pig kidney worthwhile to do until someone can get a real kidney? We don't know. We don't know yet.
Dr. Siskind, thank you so much for the time today here on the KRLD Afternoon News. Once again, that is Dr. Eric Siskind. He is a transplant surgeon with Texas Health Transplant Specialists. We appreciate the time.
Thank you.